Nigeria's foreign reserves have surged to $41 billion, the highest in nearly 4 years. And it's driven by rising oil revenues, forex inflows, and economic reforms. The naira is stabilizing, inflation is easing, and confidence is slowly returning. But while the economy shows signs of recovery, politics tells a very different story. Last weekend's by-elections across 12 states exposed deep cracks in Nigeria's electoral integrity, from vote buying to violence and apathy. On the program, we ask, can economic progress coexist with political instability? And what does it all mean for 2027? This is Standpoint. I am Precious Amayu. Nigeria's foreign exchange reserves have surged to $41 billion as of August 19th, 2025. That's the highest level in nearly 4 years, according to the Central Bank of Nigeria. The sharp rebound, up from $37 billion just over a month ago, marks a critical turnaround after months of sluggish performance in the first half of the year. Analysts say the growth driven by increased oil output, rising forex inflows, and sustained economic reforms is a key stabilizer for the naira, helping to cushion the impact of external shocks and reduce import costs. At the same time, inflation continues to decline, while the naira has seen modest appreciation in both official and parallel markets and narrowing the gap between them. With this renewed economic optimism, many are asking, how sustainable is this momentum? And what does it mean for businesses, for consumers, and the broader economy? To unpack these questions and more, we are joined now by Akin Fatunke, a chartered accountant and arbitrator with deep insights into Nigeria's macroeconomic trends and currency stability. He joins me in the studio. Good to have you join us.
Thank you very much, Precious. Always a pleasure to be with you.
So it seems like good news. I don't know how many people are interpreting it as such, but I'm listening to economic analysts as yourself saying, look, $41 billion, it's a lot. Looking at where, we've had $15 billion before, we've had $25 billion, as low as that before. But let me get your thought on this.
41 billion 001,830 in gross reserves, with 41.3 billion in net reserves, is good news. In relative terms, we are saying since that fateful Friday of December 3 in 2021, marking, as I speak with you in your studios today, 1,360 days. A ray of lights begin to come in. A ray that economists, serious-minded, conservative economists will tell you we're getting into the arena of stability. Before now, we have always said we have not had the proper kiss between fiscal, even the fiduciary policies of government. Ways and means, printing naira, revenue tumbling, purchasing managers' index, going to barbers. And if you recall, at the downward onset of COVID-19, Nigeria was coughing and shaking, catching cold, all at the same time. And all indices were going into different directions. But with what we have had, since like your beautiful intro 4 days ago, for us to now have this 41 billion, tells me from the headmaster's table that the central bank and the monetary authorities have had some good lever, some good discipline in making sure that accretion that we are seeing for the highest in 3 months plus, hopefully will be sustained. The implication of it for the naira, of course, is going to be far-fetched. You know, there's going to be more confidence in FX coming.
I will get to that because, you know, that's what a lot of business people want to know. Who buy and sell in foreign currency.
Right.
But or rather buy in foreign currency. But I wanted to also ask you, because you mentioned, you have highlighted some of the reforms, and I want to talk about if this is a product of the Tinubu administration's reform, and then where are we in terms of, is that reform still on the right trajectory?
Frankly speaking, yes, very much so. The subnationals are getting more money to embark on various projects and paying off their debts. This is coming at the back of the removal of fuel subsidy, in quotes now. And do we have full removal? Again, the jury is coming in bits and tons. But since Mr. President has stood the course and has said whatever it is that will be gains measured in terms of what now goes to the subnational governments, and they are able to, or they should be able to, all things being equal, ceteris paribus, be able to pay the minimum wage, though not all are so much aligned. And the fact that the inflation is still wobbling and fumbling, we are experiencing what I call stability towards growth. Stability in the sense that we are looking at a free fall. Cool. So the velocity of the fall is now being stabilized, and you can then do what you call in scenario planning, strategic planning, planning your prices, planning your reorders, and just ensuring that should in case, God forbid, we have another external shock, another caveat emptor that brings in a COVID, God forbid, we have some relative buffer that we can say to ourselves, yes, we can continue to defend the Naira, but production, discipline in the kind of consumptions that we have, budget discipline to ensuring that priorities are clearly set, and the bottom line being growth to reach the poorest of the poor, social intervention, which must be tightened, and then the issue of corruption that surrounds the whole game should be taken care of. Now, in terms of the alignment of the foreign exchange market, I think, take it or leave it depending on what side of the fence you sit. I see that the headmaster, that's the name I call, the sobriquet I call our CBN governor, has done quite a lot to try and bring sanity into that system, transparency, introduction of the electronic fixing, and making sure that whatever it is you buy is what you get, and then setting out clear level prescriptions for punishment for those who in my view are still not aligned. There's still a lot of speculations, no doubt. If I look at the businessmen... When you say
those who are not aligned, what does that mean?
No, because people still are there speculating. I mean, you cannot guard the whole game of human behavior. You still find people who still want to smuggle. You still find people who still want to round trip in the foreign exchange market. But by and large, it's reduced, and it is not getting what economists would call the marginal quantum impact to destabilize the foreign exchange market. And so when I get the Dangotes of this world, and I get the Elumelus of this world, and the BUA guys of this world are saying now we can sit down, we can plan better. Yes, prices are still high, but at least we have a benchmark for us that we will not be having too much of a turbulence, very high spike, low spikes.
Those are the behemoths. But what about the small and medium businesses? I mean, what does this mean for them? Because they are the ones reeling from, I'm not saying, the Dangotes again of this world, like you mentioned, are not also battling with the cost of, diesel to run their businesses. But, is it small businesses that basically have to deal with the electricity tariffs, have to deal with the balancing profit with cost of fuel and overhead costs generally if they have staff to pay? And so what does this mean for them?
Still a long road to trek, no doubt about that. We are talking about, first of all, stabilizing towards growth. Compared to perhaps what we'll be having, everybody's going down the drain. I do not deny that the cost of doing business still remains high for these SMEs, but with the kind of injection and incentives that government is also providing by way of credit, yes, you can say perhaps the credit is not far-flung or far-fetched, but you have to now then try and balance that against people who don't need, who wants to hoard, and yet are still flying in this same market, and they are being thrown out. The political will, in my mind, for us to set aside, as we have seen in the budget, even though implementation is the graveyard of all good plans, where we cannot then say 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 in different areas. And I'm using as a yardstick a couple of looking at our Greek intervention, what I think is happening in Niger State in terms of the shea butter thing. Yeah. And then, if you are now going to look at the value add, a lot of SMEs will naturally benefit because of the local content. We see something that is happening, is it around the Peru, somewhere in Ogun State, the kind of machinery that has been brought to bear to help our textile. I am more than convinced that serious-minded SMEs had, no doubt about that, and who have their focus and who have their values well stated and straightforward, helped by the tax reforms that also is coming as part of the buffer against the shocks. That the shocks will not be there, will not be telling the truth, that the SMEs are not assessing as much as we expect, also will not be far away from it. But I say, slowly but surely, we'll get there.
All right, let's talk about the signal this sent to foreign direct investment, because most of the trips that the president has made recently has always been about, he takes a very economic approach. I say that a lot, that the president takes a very economic approach to his foreign trips and to his just his international affairs direction is really economic. And right now he's in Brazil, he has gone to, he's going to Brazil, he has gone to Japan. What does this mean in terms of his ability to now attract more investments into the country?
We must say that the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a step that you took yesterday. It's clear that we have issues domestically to contend with: security, low output, effectively, GDP rising but not in the quantum that we expect, inflation still galloping at an acceleration that stability, hopefully as we move, will help us reduce. But I think those strategic trips, let me call them strategic trips, to attract foreign investments may begin to bear fruits tomorrow. I said steps we took yesterday, looking at stability today, and then trying to see what is going to happen about tomorrow.
And tomorrow will be how many months or years from now?
Tomorrow will be like tomorrow 1 year. Let's see what's going to happen in 4 years' time. I am not an analyst that come and then, jumble hope misguided. There's quite a number of things that we still need to prioritize for ourselves. The political class still needs to tighten their belts, asking every other person to please continue to wait, I want to also see the kind of waiting that you will also have. And then, of course, everything should not just be at the center. Like I mentioned, the subnationals, some of them are coming up and are saying that, look, I think life is getting better, but what are you prioritizing the use of this? I mean, I do not want, for instance, to really believe that the living wage, that is 70,000 naira, is far off from. I should not have some other incentives that can help people, can help families, can help the poorest of the poor, can get the social investment into proper perspective. Japan, that Mr. President went to, I think I read, so many things come on social media, maybe some on print media, that immediately he left Japan, one of the county areas was designated Nigerian cities. So what are we going to be doing about that? Now Mr. President has left. He's left a trail of passing the ball for us to try and score. Do we go there with our usual penchant to get into drugs like we get, and then our hosts will now begin to now say to ourselves,
is that something that government can drive? Because it will be a first of its kind to see that Japan is, I mean, it also designated to other countries as well, but Nigeria, for Nigeria to have a designated city, is that something that government can take advantage of in terms of having business hubs, Nigerian business that are willing and ready to expand to other markets and ensure that this becomes like a business hub for them?
And who are the government? You and I. People with great ideas, beauty, the fauna and the flora that we have virtually driven to the ground, only to come out when we go out there, whether it's our sports, whether it's areas of our culture, just name them. Yes, the government, and I am really pleased with what I see with the trade minister, giving the right vibes, giving the right response against external shocks that even come from the likes of the US. We are moving again as observers on BRICS to now begin to now put our hands on the plow. One thing I would love to see, which I think your question brilliantly is pushing me to, shouldn't Nigeria as a government now begin to now ask the critical questions about getting ambassadors out there? You know, I mean, in whatever way and manner the president has now left, there should be a lacuna. I know we have an acting the Chadi affairs, but can we now get right bets into right holes to be able to now then pull these things out there? Our culture, our dances, our music, just name them, Precious.
And they can also continue to interface with the government, for example, let's use Japan. Government of Japan on some of the resolutions and agreements that have been reached between Nigeria and Japan. I mean, that could also be that should be one of their responsibilities.
Not only that, you know, I will drop something with you, Precious. And, it's a cultural risorgimento that I know Japan has. And it's called Kintsukurai. K-I-N-T-S-U, you can Google it. It comes out with a verse that has broken, can be relacinated in a way that after you do the repair, it's going to look much more beautiful than the original verse. I am saying the kind of interact that should be between us is to look at the cultures of the two. They want to see more of our dances, they want to see more of our music, they want to see more of our fashion, they want to see more of the tigresses, you know, if you understand what I'm trying to say, and more of our push and resilience, which again, slightly different from the kind of culture that I know the Japanese have, cleanliness, and what have you. So there can be an intercourse of such cultures by way of ensuring that Japanese auto come to Nigeria. They were here before and they got driven away, but with the kind of physical, serious environment that we are now trying to, I use the word trying to because we are not yet there. We are still not yet unified as to how we are going to be looking at the security of our leadership, of our elections. You know, we're still kidnapping, banditry here and there. If we can get all that in good shape with priorities, tone set from the top, National Assembly, state governments, local governments, looking at issues surrounding our policing system, local government administration. And I can tell you that Japan will be looking at a few local government areas in this country and say, how you do it? How you do it? Yes, we have the technology. We bring the technology, bring it in here, still copy, but on our soil, so that we can then begin to generate the kind of employment, we can generate the kind of growth that Mr. Okunjo-Iweala was talking about. But if you compare and contrast to the president's trip, went to Dubai, not shortly after that, you know, we saw what some of our people did and all that, and they had to kind of want to take us out. Xenophobia is still on in Ghana, in South Africa. We must say we are not just the giant of Africa. We have the industry, and we have the capacity, we have the competence, we have the consciousness to be able to help. And then our welfare system, where we always take care of our aged, is dwindling now, but our aged and the weakest of the weak, yes, we have that.
And I know you're talking about all round, what would drive all round economic stability, and then the impacts of that economic stability back, on the people.
Yes.
But I also wanted to talk about to you, because you were going to talk about it earlier, the stability of the Naira, which is what a lot of people are hoping for. That at some point you can say this is the amount, and then that it comes down, I know we are hovering around 1,500. It looks to have been stable around 1,500 to the dollar
for some time.
And for some people, it's still high. For those who really have to source for goods outside of this country to sell, and so for them it's still a bit high, and then it comes back on the consumer. But first of all, the increase in the foreign reserves, what does it mean for Naira stability, and what more can we do? Is there even hope at all that it goes, below 1,500?
Yes, if we produce more, if we stay the course, if we decide that we are not going to allow inefficiencies to come into our well-being, if we curtail our tastes for foreign goods, for what we can plant and grow here, the implications for the Naira is enormous. One, easing of inflationary pressures. Like you said, it's still high, but relatively stable. Can we find a way to build on that in such that the flooding will not come, and then the Mokwa Bridge will not break down, and then the saboteurs will not come into the land. Farmers can go into their farms, small-scale farmers can go into their farms and feel relatively secured. Or your state, a PDP state, is making a lot of waves in that direction, where they're not trying to turn starch production into much more valuable chain. I would say, as an economist, when you say that the exchange rate is still high, well, it's high but better, much more realistic in terms of perhaps the lie or the bubble that we had in the past. I am one of those who really believe that what we were enjoying before was like eating a cake and still wanting to have it, eating a tomorrow and still wanting to have it with the kind of buffer that we give and then printing of naira. So the whole thing was just not on. I am for a realistic foreign exchange whereby manufacturers can plan better, can get better incentives, more money can go into the poorest of the poor. They don't have to pay taxes, while the rich are made to at least pay more. Tax avoidance and tax evasion is brought down to the minimum, and our politicians begin to now listen a little bit more to the people. Not what they want, but what do these people want? How do the people in my area, how are they going to benefit? We can have some very nice competition. I begin to see competitions in terms of the kind of educational institutions that I see that some local governments are creating, and not at a time when we now begin to then say we want more states. Well, I don't know about more states. The ones we have are still not viable. Many of them are still not catching up, despite the fact that a lot of money has come to them. So the stability, the external reserves that is created and it's going up, the foreign inflow and stability, people now feel that their money is going to be safe when it comes to Nigeria. We're not going to be having the kind of spikes here and there. The discipline that should continue to dovetail a foreign exchange market, the transparency that's been introduced, should continue. The politics, of course, will be injected. I mean, not many people will want it because you are taking away the kind of arbitrage advantage that they all have, where a few people keep on enjoying to the detriment of the others. And then the higher politics of ensuring that our oil and gas, to ensure that we have all the kind of transparency that we have, that area is still not smelling like rose in my view. A gas flaring, our relationship from the looking at Niger, looking at ECOWAS, be able to do a gas pipeline up towards Morocco. Nigeria is a giant, not just in the sun, but waiting to unravel itself.